It's hard to be scared by a book. It's not like a movie where you can be like, you know, it's different. I guess I haven't read many horror stories, but I think it's not so much that I get scared, it's more that you can get freaked out. Like if an author writes about something like a rotting corpse or like blood everywhere, the most I feel I can get is just like kind of like this disgusted kind of feeling. But you can be thrilled, definitely. I mean, you've definitely probably have read a thriller, and you can feel kind of your pulse because you really want to know what's going to happen. But in the terms of being scared, I don't know. You know, it's hard to be scared by just reading words. And the first one that I want to go over is The Shining by Stephen King. The Shining was really good. I mean, there's not the thing about The Shining though is that, long story short, it's about this family. They're kind of low on money, and so their father is the father of the family is trying really hard to, find something to do, and so he gets this job to take over a hotel during the winter. So the family goes. The kid has these weird telepathic sort of abilities. He can see dead people and stuff. He's really attuned to like the supernatural, and so some bad stuff has happened at the hotel, and the father gets really obsessed with, finding out about all the history of the hotel, and he becomes so obsessed that the spirits from the hotel actually influence him and, in a sense, make him do things like want to kill his own family. And the thing that I found rather tedious about this book was that it just keeps going on and on. Like it reaches a point where you're like, okay, he's gonna go crazy. We know what's going to happen. Let's just kind of get there right now. They're just a bunch of chapters of just like the kid wandering around and being like, oh, that thing was there, but it wasn't there before or something like that. And it's like, well, get it. The place is haunted and shit's gonna go down. Because I saw the Stanley Kubrick movie, and with like most Stanley Kubrick movies, you might be like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" kind of thing, and the movie doesn't really explain well why the father went crazy. It doesn't really go that deep into the supernatural stuff, but the book definitely explains everything that happens, and I find it interesting how in the book he actually uses a mallet instead of an axe. Because that scene's in there, where he's like, here's Johnny and stuff, except he doesn't use an axe, he uses a mallet. But, so yeah, there's The Shining. And these next two books are by the same author, Richard Matheson. I don't know if Richard Matheson is starting to be kind of forgotten these days, but you definitely have heard of his stories. I Am Legend, What Dreams May Come, The Box. All of those, well, not all of those, but like The Box, for example, was a short story called Button Button. And then he also wrote stories that ended up being Twilight Zone episodes, like Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. I really suggest you read his short stories before you consider wanting to read, I Am Legend or something like that, because his short stories really give you a taste for the kind of horror that he goes for. It's really direct, and it's like, okay, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, this guy's on a plane, he's really panicking, he sees something out the window, holy shit, what is that? And he does them differently. It's not all like third person, or it's not all first person. Like one of the short stories in this one, it's an interview where these police officers are interviewing a kid who's freaking out at something that happened to his parents. And I mean, I don't want to give it away, but you're kind of wondering. You're like, what do you see? What's going on? And the kid gradually reveals, and then at the end, you're like, oh. you know, that you get that image of in your mind, and you're like, you know, so it kind of does freak you out, and it's really good. So there's that. Richard Matheson. This fucking book you need to read if you're really into horror stories. The October Country by Ray Bradbury. Now let's put aside the fact that Ray Bradbury is probably my favorite author and wrote my favorite book, which will be a topic discussion for another time. But The October Country is a book of short stories. And they're horror short stories. Not every single one is horror, but they're weird. And it's just so... it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's like... I feel like some of these should have been Twilight Zone episodes. Like... I mean, I don't... it's so good. It's so good. Like, it's really... It really draws you in. Like... I don't even know where to begin. Like, there's a story where one guy sort of ends up being deaf. He's like a farmer, and he unknowingly becomes deaf. And then there's like this woman who's freaked out about her baby. She keeps thinking that her baby's trying to kill her. And there's like this other story where this kid's dog can bring people back from the dead and shit. And it's just so good. And then there was this one story, I think it's just called The Lake. I fucking cried. I cried my ass off because it was just like this story about this guy who like knew this girl a long time ago, and she drowned, and he's walking along the beach and he actually sees her body or something, and he remembers everything, and I fucking cried by the end of that. It was so bad, but it's so fucking good. And lastly, is a book that I just started reading because it really sucks that Halloween falls on a Wednesday this year. So I was like, fuck. It's gonna suck. So, to compensate for that, I decided to get in the mood for Halloween by reading a horror book throughout the month of October. And I chose Dracula. Classic by Bram Stoker. And I never read it. I never read anything by him. I never knew that I only watched the movie, the old movie with Bela Lugosi. And of course I haven't finished it yet. But you know, I just want to briefly talk about what I think of it so far. I thought it'd be a lot more, because when was this written? This was written in like sometime in the 1800s, right? Yeah, because I was expecting it to be long and drawn out, you know, typical of that writing from that time. But no, it was actually really easy to read. I was surprised at how easy it is to read. It's it's written as if you're reading the journals of like Jonathan Harker and his wife, and even some newspaper articles. So it's sort of like as if someone is trying to piece together all the events that happened based on all these notes and journal entries. But the one drawback is that, you know, Dracula is such an old story that you know everything about vampires, and all of the cliches from movies, from horror movies nowadays, like wolves howling in the distance and all the villagers being afraid and not speaking to you, that all comes from Dracula. It's all right here. All those cliches started with Dracula. And, but it's still entertaining, you know. I mean, it is what it is. It was the grandfather, I guess, of vampire stories and maybe even horror stories in general. If you care, write a comment down below. What horror story freaked you out the most, or even scared you the most? And why not? I mean, add in a movie too. When I was little, I used to be afraid of Chucky because, I mean, I don't know if you can know this, but I had always had a lot of toys and plush toys and stuff around me. So watching a movie about a killer doll didn't really help at all.